All right. Here we go. Now, I am not the type of guy to make the thumbnail that you're probably seeing or the type of title, unless it's true. President Trump is very upset. I use the word heated because President Trump used the words playing with fire to respond to the mayor of Minneapolis. Now, if you are watching this video, this is a posted live stream. So for those of you to not miss these live streams, make sure to please like the video, subscribe, turn on your notifications, leave a comment. Those are all ways it helps you to see the live streams every morning, or at the very least to see my posted videos like the one you're watching right now. Thank you guys so much for all being here. If you guys are joining the live stream, make sure to please like the live stream. It helps out a ton. So we are officially day 2 into this federal operation in Minneapolis involving Tom Homan. Now, apparently on day 1, we're going to get into it, everything was looking okay. We had good conversations between Tom Homan and the governor and the mayor. I don't know if Tom Homan talked to the mayor of St. Paul, but we do have a statement from the mayor of St. Paul. Everything seems to be okay, and now all of a sudden we have some backlash back and forth. Now, as many of you are aware, Chief Bovino is no longer on the ground. And I said this in yesterday's show. For anybody celebrating who's like, yes, Bovino is gone, this is great, I don't see that as the biggest win for people who don't like Chief Bovino. In fact, I see it as the complete opposite. And again, this is not going to be the most one-sided show, but what I will say is this. Now you have the President of the United States fully focused on the city of Minneapolis with a direct line of communication. His name is Tom Homan. And if Tom Homan tomorrow, in my opinion, says, I want 2,000 more federal agents, Tom Homan can do that. Chief Bovino could not do that. Chief Bovino, heavily influential. President Trump talks about him here very soon. We'll talk about that. But Chief Bovino was more a localized leader on the ground. If he wants like a couple hundred more troops, he can have that. Look, Tom Homan, different levels here. He can bring in a whole brigade if he wants. So I don't know if he's going to do that, but I'm just saying this is not good. We're already seeing clashes on day 2 of the new changes, the shakeup. President Trump is calling this a shakeup. I'll show you guys that in a second. We're also going to talk about this government shutdown that might happen, may or may not happen. We actually have Senator Rand Paul talks about wanting to possibly, he condemns immigration enforcement. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some new developments as far as investigations are concerned involving a signal chat or chats, lines of communication between protesters, and some other news about Alex Preddy that's going to be from CNN, actually. Yeah, we have a lot to dig into. As many of you are aware, Congresswoman Omar was attacked yesterday. Yeah, we have a lot. So let's start with this right off the top. So the mayor says this. The job of our... Well, first off, here's what President Trump says right here. Surprisingly, Mayor Jacob Frey just stated that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws. This is after having had a very good conversation with him. Could somebody in his inner sanctum please explain that this statement is a very serious violation of the law and that he is playing with fire? Playing with fire. Now, the mayor responds and says, the job of our police is to keep people safe, not enforce federal immigration laws. I want them preventing homicides, not hunting down a working dad who contributes to MPLS and is from Ecuador. It's similar to the policy your guy, Rudy, had in New York City. Everyone should feel safe calling 911. Now, Bill Maluzhin clarifies from Fox News, nobody has asked Minneapolis Police Department to enforce immigration laws. In fact, I think that's why President Trump sent in Tom Homan. Tom Homan is the one guy in the Trump administration who says all the time, you don't have to work with us, but get out of the way. If there are protesters attacking us, can you please help us out there? But just stay out of our way. But what the Trump administration wants is this, and I think you guys have heard a lot about this, the retainers, cooperation in retainers. So you heard the mayor say, I want them preventing homicides, not hunting down a working dad, but this is the actual want. Nobody has asked Minneapolis Police Department to enforce immigration laws. They've been asked to honor ICE detainers so ICE can pick up illegal immigrants charged with crimes. And once they are released from jail, not prison, it's a safer setting for everyone involved and requires less ICE on the streets. Oof. The back and forth on day 2.
Doesn't seem willing to play ball. Also writing that I made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws, and that we will remain focused on keeping our neighbors and streets safe. City leaders will continue to stay in conversation with Mr. Homan and his team. So not clear what the path is moving forward as far as Minneapolis complying with the Trump administration. Governor Walz also released a statement through his office, and while he didn't make it clear, he didn't definitively state that Minnesota is unwilling to cooperate with the Trump administration.
So I'm sure you guys, look, within the last week, we keep hearing we want to work together, but we don't do this. We want to work with you, but we don't do this. And I think more and more Americans are starting to tune in and figure out what's going on here. In my personal opinion, I do think, politically speaking, this is in line, in favor with the Trump administration as far as political talking points. I'm just being honest with you. Because President Trump did exactly what the mayor and what the governor wanted. Tone it down, take out some federal agents, and President Trump took out the one federal agent everyone is aware of, Chief Bovino and his crew. And so President Trump actually complied with that. And now all of a sudden you send in a Tom Homan to try and calm everyone down, have some lines of communication. And now the mayor is saying the job of our police is to keep people safe. Great. Not enforce federal immigration laws. We know that. I want them preventing homicides, not hunting down a working dad who contributes to MPLS and is from Ecuador. So here we go. Day 2, people. But apparently the conversations went well. Now, Tom Homan, I think, knew this was going to happen. Tom Homan's been doing this for a long time. And again, thank you guys so much for being here. To all the live stream people, thank you guys so much. Make sure to please like the stream. It helps out a ton. Thank you guys.
Orders are Tom Homan announced he had meetings with Governor Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Fry here in Minnesota. Homan writing, today I met with Governor Walz, Mayor Fry, and top law enforcement officials to discuss the issues on the ground in Minnesota. We all agree that we need to support our law enforcement officers and get criminals off the streets. While we don't agree on everything, these meetings were a productive starting point, and I look forward to more conversations with key stakeholders in the days ahead. Now, President Trump has laid out a plan for what he says will end the chaos here in Minnesota, which in part requires Minnesota to turn over criminals for deportation. But Mayor Fry doesn't seem willing to play ball, also writing that I made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws. And
okay, so we saw that. So there you go. Again, everything seemed to be going great, but now we're gonna have to wait and see what happens here. Again, a lot of this seems to revolve around the fact of wanting the detainers. The Trump administration wants the people who are in jail or prison. If you are an illegal immigrant and committed a crime, we want to take care of that. And again, from Tom Homan, if you guys are unaware, Tom Homan does have an X account if you guys want to go follow him. Yeah, he even says, today I met with Governor Walz, Mayor Fry, and top law enforcement officials to discuss the issue on the ground in Minnesota. We all agree that we need to support our law enforcement officers and get criminals off the streets. Great. While we don't agree on everything, these meetings were a productive starting point, and I look forward to more conversations with key stakeholders in the days ahead. President Trump has been clear. He wants American cities to be safe and secure for law-abiding residents, and they will be. Now, we don't have a press conference from anybody, and I apologize for being sick. Again, this ice storm was really bad. But we do have a statement from the governor as far as he made this video after the meeting.
Good morning, Minnesota. Governor Walz here. It's Tuesday, the 27th of January. We have special elections, 2 of them here in Minnesota. I just voted in for my state house candidate. That seat was vacated by the newly elected mayor of St. Paul, Mayor Herr. And what I can tell you is Minnesotans, as you've seen and the world has seen, care deeply about civic engagement, care deeply about justice, care deeply about their neighbors. And one of the things we're always very proud of, we're either first or second in the country for voter turnout. And we have the safest, most secure, most well-attended elections in the country, and we like to talk about that. And what I can assure everyone in this country is we will break that record in November.
Okay, so Governor Tim Walz talking about voting and the security of voting and how much people vote. Now, I see some people in the chat saying this was a good thing. Some people are saying it's a bad thing. And I think that's the general consensus right now of how some voters feel, or Trump voters feel, as far as what is occurring in Minneapolis. Did Trump do the right thing by getting rid of Bovino, sending in a Tom Homan, trying to be more diplomatic, or was this a trap the whole time? Was this just a way to fully expose that Governor Tim Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis don't actually fully comply as far as, quote-unquote, wanting to find the criminals? We'll have to wait and see. But again, my personal opinion is I think Tom Homan is way more influential and has way more power as far as command and control of a situation. Mayor Fry also goes on to say, I shared with Mr. Homan the serious negative impacts this operation has had in Minneapolis and surrounding communities, as well as the strain it has placed on our local police officers. I also made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws, and that we will remain focused on keeping our neighbors safe. So there we go. The line is drawn in the sand, guys. I mean, I think you know this by now. We have another statement from the governor as far as what he feels about the Tom Homan situation.
I'm not interested in a more efficient metro surge. I'm ready for them to get out of here, and I think that's what Minnesotans are talking about. So it was progress. Look, I never got a call from Bovino or Noam.
Never.
Nothing. No, nothing. When they're
again now, just like 4 shows ago, Kristi Noem said she has his number and they have been communicating. I do want to throw that out there. I'm not calling one or the other like a liar or that's not true, but we have it documented on my own show and other clips that there have been lines of communication. So again, I'm with you guys. Sometimes I'm just as confused. I don't know what the communication is, but now he's saying there hasn't been any phone calls or conversations. I don't know what timeline he's talking about, but I do want to make it clear. We have it on my own show that there have been lines of communication.
No, or Noam.
Never.
Nothing. No, nothing. When they're coming here, and Tom Homan landed last night, and he called me last night and asked if he could have a meeting, and he was there at 9 o'clock. So, look, I think that's progress, but they started this fire, so we're not giving anybody credit for putting it out. But right now, what we need is a return to normalcy by these ICE agents out of here. And you talked about this in all those meetings with the White House and with Tom Homan and his team. Nobody asked about Alex or his family, so I appreciate you bringing that up. This family going through the horror of losing their son, and then also to see him slandered like that. It's just
not only slandered. I'm slandered by the top officials
yes, in the world,
the
the most
administration.
powerful people in the world, and not taking it back. And look, for one whole day, certain news stations, that's all they were running, and that's one of the problems here. Look, Minnesota, they came here. We don't have near the undocumented folks that many other states do. Minnesota's a well-run state. Minnesota's a place where people get along. We welcome immigrant community, and they brought this down on us. And I think you're here, Anderson. You're telling your folks it's a siege. It's a siege in all respects. We have children being pulled from their parents. We have elderly people being drug out in this type of cold with no clothes. It's just absolute cruelty.
I mean,
Okay, so yeah, you guys can leave your comments. Let me know what you think about that. Again, the key takeaway, the governor is shifting the blame to the Trump administration, calling it a siege, saying they started it. It's chaotic because of them. And again, the other key takeaway saying there's been no lines of communication between Chief Bovino and the elements on the ground. Again, I don't know the full validity of that, considering in other statements we've heard they have had some sort of communication, but just pointing out that is his most recent statement, and he actually posted this himself on January 27th, which was yesterday if you're watching this live. We saw that. Now, the other big takeaway is this. The operation in Minneapolis, for anyone thinking that this is slowing down because, again, Chief Bovino has been sent away or other federal agents, this is not slowing down anytime soon. What might slow down is how aggressive we might have seen, like the door-to-door operations or like quite literally knocking on doors, possibly. But as far as everything else, There's a massive federal element out there. So for anyone thinking on either side, right or left, whatever side you want to claim you're on, nothing is slowing down as of right now. In fact, I think the possibility of it heating up is actually a lot higher with Tom Homan there. That is no disrespect to Tom Homan. It's just now, when you really think about it, President Trump has been focusing on Greenland, acquiring a country, focusing on Venezuela. I'm getting news right now that Rubio is focusing on some sort of assets in Venezuela, diplomatic assets to have lines of communication back and forth. So the president is focusing on a lot of stuff. We have military assets possibly being around Iran with those protests. So now all of a sudden you have the president of the United States. He puts Minneapolis on that top of the list there. Through Tom Homan, those lines of communication. So this is not slowing down, in my opinion. From Homeland Security, posted again yesterday, Operation Metro Search continues to remove criminal illegal aliens from the neighborhoods of Minnesota. We are putting Minnesotans first and getting violent criminals out of our communities. Yeah, so not slowing down anytime soon. Now, there's some speculation out there as to whether or not the president is upset with Kristi Noem or Stephen Miller or Chief Bovino, not for their job performance, but the after-action review as far as what happened with the recent shooting. The messaging, if you will. I think you guys are aware of that. Whether messaging on social media or during the press conferences. But President Trump is saying, no, I'm not upset with them at all. He's calling it a shakeup, if you will, as far as moving leadership around. Let's start with this.
Why? Why do they feel so emboldened?
You have to go throughout the whole country. We have done so much work throughout the whole country. We don't have any problem. The only one we have is Minnesota. We're in a lot of different places. New Orleans, we're in the governor of Louisiana called they have a big problem in New Orleans. And we went there. We've cut the crime by 67% in 4 weeks. It'll be down to practically nothing soon. Washington, D.C., we don't have problems.
Right.
We've cut it down from a lot. It was very bad. It was terrible. People go to Washington to look at the Lincoln Monument, and they end up getting whacked or whatever.
And just to give you guys some context, this is an interview from President Trump. He was asked about, moving leadership around, what he thinks about Bovino and others. And don't worry, we will be getting to the left-leaning perspective here pretty soon.
Killed in some cases, numerous killings. That's a beautiful, safe place now. Memphis, Tennessee, one of the worst in the whole country. And now it's got very little crime.
But it's gone very differently in Minneapolis.
Well, it has. It's the only place.
And now the message is out that Tom Homan is in.
Yeah.
Commander Bovino is supposedly leaving Minneapolis along with some CBP agents. Is this a pullback?
I don't think it's a pullback. It's a little bit of a change. Everybody in this room that has a business, you make little changes. Bovino's very good, but he's a pretty out there kind of a guy. And in some cases, that's good. Maybe it wasn't good here.
So, again, we don't know the full reason. I don't know exactly what the president means by this, but let me just play that back real quick. It seems that President Trump likes Bovino. I don't want to speculate too hard. I think he really likes him. But then listen to the words at the very end there. I don't know if it was good in this case.
Make little changes. Bovino's very good, but he's a pretty out there kind of a guy. And in some cases, that's good. Maybe it wasn't good here. But you have to understand, when I watch some of the people that I've been watching over the last few weeks, these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid agitators. These people aren't normal, like OG, that, they're incensed about anything. How do you get incensed when you go into a state and you're taking criminals out? You're taking monsters out, murderers. We had 11,888 murderers let into our country by other countries, by Biden with his open border stupid policy. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So I'm curious what you guys think about that, honestly. Do you think it was the right move, wrong move? What do you guys think? Again, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know or think we're going to be seeing Chief Bovino again. If we do, I think it would be under extreme circumstances. But I don't think we're going to be seeing... Again, his job was sort of just like invented for Chief Bovino in this unique way of operating as a federal entity. Commander at large. And you take a man, Chief Bovino, you give him federal agents, and you deploy him around the country, you shake up the city, you expose what's going on. I think those were the tactics developed by the Trump administration to back up ICE agents But it looks like, I don't know if we're going to be seeing that again. I'm going to be honest with you.
About bad policy. Open borders where people were coming, so the whole world, the Congo, Venezuela, all over the world, they're letting people in from their prisons and they're feeding them into the United States. And they're murderers and they're drug dealers and they're everything else you can think of, every bad name you can think of. And they let them in by the millions. We closed the border. You know, we have nobody coming into our country anymore. Literally.
It just shows how hard it is.
Okay, so let me know how you guys feel about that. And thank you, eDisciple, for the very generous $5 donation. I appreciate it, eDisciple. God bless you, and God bless all of you guys. Hope you're doing well. And for those of you still affected by the snowstorm, there's a lot of people still iced in. Hope you guys are doing okay. Start with this.
Stop that they have.
I know you addressed it this morning. You talked about the incredible success, and it is an incredible success at the southern border. But you were asked, with the shift in Minneapolis and Tom Homan going to Minnesota, do you still have confidence in DHS Secretary Kristi Noem? You brought up the success at the border.
Look,
you do.
She was there with the border. Who closed up the border? She did, with Tom Homan, with the whole group. I mean, they closed up the border. The border is a tremendous success, one of the most secure borders in the entire world.
Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys the president doesn't seem to indicate that he's upset with Kristi Noem or has lost any confidence in Kristi Noem. There's a lot of speculation right now, not speculation, but a lot of push from either Democrats, a lot of Democrats who don't like Kristi Noem, some of them calling for impeachment, being fired, things like that. Thank you, James P2391, for the very generous $2 donation. And he just wrote T-SPLY. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's continue. I can show you guys a million different clips. Okay, so this is from Allie Bradley. She actually has a direct statement from Chief Bovino. As of right now, Chief Bovino has not posted anything on his social media. Again, I don't know if it's fully true. He was kicked off of his social media. But as of right now, he has not posted anything, and he was very active on there. Allie Bradley says, it's true, he has been relieved of commander at large, and she says his access to all social media accounts have been suspended. So that's what she's reporting. She's from Newsmax. She says, he tells me the agents of Operation at Large were a true honor to serve with. Now, folks, those agents really made a difference, unprecedented. And those are the statements from Chief Bovino. Stephen Miller has been getting some flack as well for his statements. He's back on social media. He says, working under the most adverse conditions imaginable, stalked, hunted, tailed, surveyed, and viciously attacked by organized violent leftists every hour of the day, our heroic ICE officers selflessly defend our sovereignty and the lives of our people. True courage and devotion. So, there you go. Let's roll 47 with the very generous $20 donation. Says, thank you, Marcus, for all you do. And I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you guys so much. All right, so let's move on to this. You guys may have heard or seen this. This is going to be from a CNN. I'm going to let this investigation speak for itself, but it is a part of the investigation.
CNN is learning that Alex Preddy had a physical encounter with federal agents about a week before he was shot and killed by law enforcement. Sources tell CNN that Preddy broke a rib when a group of federal officers tackled him while he was protesting. Priscilla Alvarez is breaking that story for us. What else are you hearing, Priscilla?
Dana, we're learning more details along with my colleague Jeff Winter about what exactly transpired a week before Alex Preddy was shot in Minneapolis and died this past weekend. Now, in this earlier incident, he stopped his car after observing ICE agents chasing what he described as a family on foot and began shouting and blowing his whistle. Preddy later told one of these sources that 5 agents tackled him and one leaned on his back, appearing to leave him with a broken rib. According to this source, and I'm quoting here, that source said, quote, that day he thought he was going to die. Now, Preddy was later given medication that is consistent with treating a broken rib, according to records reviewed by CNN. Sources also say that he was known to federal law enforcement, though it's unclear whether it was this incident or another.
So again, I just want to throw it out there. This is being reported from CNN. CNN sometimes obviously gets labeled as a more left-leaning outlet, and I do think that's crucial as far as the political aspect of talking points. because it's very hard to point back and forth and say, well, this is just being invented. This is just a way to smear campaign. This is coming from a CNN, and this is what they're saying, and a bunch of other news outlets are also reporting this.
With federal agents that they knew of him. It's also unclear whether the officers who tackled him on Saturday knew who he was. What we do know, however, is that federal immigration officers have been collecting personal information of protesters and agitators within the context of what the Department of Homeland Security has warned is repeated threats towards officers as they are conducting immigration enforcement operations. In fact, just Tuesday, the department also publicized an online tip form to share information about people allegedly harassing ICE officers.
Okay, so again, coming from a CNN alleging that he was possibly involved with protest groups and has had physical encounters before. That is from a CNN. And as of right now, obviously, there is this investigation going on. President Trump has not really made too much of a comment on it. In fact, no, I don't have the actual direct comment. I apologize. He made a very brief comment as far as how he feels about the situation, and he seemed to be not apologetic, but felt bad. Now, you guys have been hearing about these Signal chat groups. It's not a Signal chat, it's Signal chat groups. FBI is apparently looking into it, but it's getting a lot more momentum in the mainstream media as far as people being aware there are these organized groups apparently out there.
Yeah, I've got a couple of screenshots of information that was obtained by Fox News Digital of the so-called rapid response teams in Minneapolis actively collecting information on ICE whereabouts, telegraphing it to protesters, asking people to come and back them up, including outside the donut shop. Let's put up the second screen here, including outside of the donut shop, where Alex Preddy got involved in trying to film or take video of the Border Patrol arrest that was going down and ended up dead. I mean, you can see backup needed at Black Forest Inn parking lot on Nicollet Avenue. Urgent. Observers urgently requested at Glam Doll Donuts. That's where the Preddy incident went down. Observer has been shot by ICE, unknown condition. EMTs present. Please be safe. I mean, they're calling for people to actively get out there. And if you, in protest or in trying to interfere or take video or whatever, law enforcement operation as it's ongoing, knowing how chaotic they can be, you try to get in the middle of that, sometimes there are horrible consequences.
Okay, so let me know how you feel about this. The argument as far as there are people who are openly involved with this and don't care, by the way. So just so you guys are aware, there are a lot more people than you might realize depending on what side of the political spectrum you lean or your algorithms. There are people who have come out and said, yeah, what's the problem? We're in a group chat. We're talking. Like, what's the problem here? Now, I know the counter argument is, well, the problem is your possible intentions of wanting to obstruct or cause harm. So I don't want you guys to get the sense of like everybody is so upset about this. A lot of people are, but on the flip side, many people don't see a problem with this at all. I don't know if you guys are seeing that as well. Again, a lot of it is depending on your algorithm. My algorithm is so insanely back and forth that I'm willing to pull some of that up for you, but there are people who don't care that they're in there. I'm just letting you guys know. So don't be shocked when you see stuff like that. I just want to inform you. We already got that. Again, we know that President Trump is supporting Kristi Noem here. But apparently, again, Kash Patel very briefly yesterday talked about the Signal chats and the groups, lines of communication. That's all we're being told. But now we know it is a thing. We know these chats are out there. And we know people involved with them. Again, a lot of them don't care. So we have confirmation on that as well.
Simple question. Why is all this happening in Minneapolis? Why? Why has this become the domestic war zone? What is the reason? Is there a specific area that has caused this? Why? Because I think that's really the question. On a bipartisan basis, why is that not a reasonable question?
Let me just ask you.
Why
let me
this
just answer,
place?
Let me offer some possibilities. Minneapolis is a city of fewer than 500,000 people. The Trump administration decided to send 3,000 federal officers to that one city.
Why did they send them?
Which is more than they have sent anywhere else, including Chicago of 3 million, Los Angeles.
But why?
Anywhere. Why? Well, according to Trump, it's because they're going after fraud. But again,
could there be fraud, Abby? Maybe.
Minneapolis is not unique.
Now, what's interesting here is that you guys have probably heard this time and time again. The governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, has said time and time again there is fraud in this state. And so to pretend like the leadership in Minnesota has never even acknowledged that is a little out there. But I just want to let you guys know, again, you guys can go fact check me. The governor has said time and time again he knows there's fraud out there. But the counter argument from the Trump administration is, okay, then why are you not doing anything about it, or not enough? Don't worry, we will send in our assets.
What about that
having
fraud?
jails
What about
that
that
don't
fraud?
let ICE in, but they
yeah, but if
are
you're going to go after fraud, you send
thousands of
fraud
federal officers on the
investigators.
ground. That is the only
Well,
part
why
about
don't we
this
just
that
talk
is
about
unique.
fraud for a minute?
But it's not fraud, Kevin. Like, that is BS.
What is
so
it?
he's saying fraud.
A lot of money missing. A lot of money missing.
Use these unless it's
Taxpayers are asking.
They're sending them. He is targeting Minnesota because he keeps claiming he won it. He has not, and they are already trying to sow
I think
discord.
you're deflecting the issue
I'm not
of the
deflecting,
money
because what
that's
we're talking
missing.
about is a congresswoman who got attacked tonight.
You know what I
So
like
you're
about
deflecting.
fraud? It's
So
binary.
let me just answer your question. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was attacked tonight. That is the actual issue.
What does that have to do with fraud?
Understandably, that's not the topic that we're talking about.
Oh,
You're
I'm talking about fraud right now.
Okay, well, right now you're listening.
Kevin.
No, I'm asking about fraud.
Okay. And that's one thing I'm noticing about when I'm looking into the outer aspects of this situation in Minneapolis. I'm noticing, again, you guys are probably seeing it, a lot of eyeballs are on Minneapolis and St. Paul. Now, obviously, Nick Shirley is probably a really big reason as to why the everyday American who never cared about Minneapolis might start to pay attention or look into Minnesota. I don't think he's the only reason, but probably a big reason. But it's happening on both sides. You have like left-leaning voters, right-leaning voters looking into it. And I'm noticing a lot of people care about different things. Some people really care about the fraud. Some people don't care. Some people really care about the illegal immigration. Some people don't care. And so we're really seeing this like back and forth as to what people care about and don't care about. Kevin O'Leary here, of course, talking about the fraud. And we know Kevin O'Leary likes money. You guys can let me know what you think about all of that. And I'm really curious what you guys have to say about this. So this is going to be Senator Rand Paul. He condemns immigration enforcement operations after the Alex Preddy situation. Remember, guys, we're getting into this possibility of a government shutdown. Will it happen? Maybe. But we do know there's a lot of back and forth right now between politicians, whether right-leaning, left-leaning. So I'm curious what you guys have to say.
Can't be done with no rules. And so when people watch that video and the government tells them, well, he was assaulting the police officers, nobody with any objectivity watches that video and believes that's what's happening. As the man retreats, with each altercation, he retreats, and then the woman is thrown violently to the ground, he's thrown to the ground. No American believes that he was assaulting the officers. In fact, the opposite appears to be true. So we have to get some rules of the game, and we can't have the government justifying this type of behavior because the vast majority of Americans think this was unfair what happened. The intimation, or actually the explicit call to say you don't have a Second Amendment right to carry arms in a protest really flies in the face of most of our Second Amendment community. I can tell you I've been to dozens and dozens.
Now, it should be noted, just to give you guys some political context, the governor of Kentucky did sort of notion that if ICE officers come into his state, it's going to be a problem. Not for his state, but for the ICE officers. So keep in mind, we do have some other leadership coming out of Kentucky as far as pushback against ICE agents, so keep that in mind. We talked about that in yesterday's show, and if you're new here, again, make sure to please subscribe or turn on your notifications. We cover all this stuff.
Of rallies and or protests where people are visibly armed or have concealed carry. So the people who are saying this, we need to get this straight so we can have some kind of awareness if people go to a protest that they know what the rules of the game are. If videoing somebody is an assault, which most people don't believe it is, but that is assault, then people need to know that if you video someone, you could be shot. And so we need a clarification.
Now, Rand Paul is claiming most people don't see it as an assault. Again, you guys can let me know how you feel about that. I think the main argument from the right side, maybe I'm completely off on this, is more so or the main pushback is the aftermath of the messaging and also the overuse of force. But what Rand Paul seems to be isolating is people are saying it's not an assault. Again, I don't know if how true that is. I could be totally off. You guys can let me know what you're seeing.
On all of this, and I'm going to reserve judgment on the secretary for now, but we need to hear from all of the people involved with this, and we need to know going forward that there will be some rules. There needs to be an independent investigation, for goodness sakes. There has to be an investigation. If this happened on a police force, the officers, whether or not they committed anything wrong, would immediately be put on administrative leave, and there would be an investigation. But I don't know who trusts an investigation to be done by DHS when they're the ones calling this person an assassin, a would-be assassin, a domestic terrorist, saying he was assaulted the police. How can they be in charge of an independent investigation? Something's got to happen here.
Okay, so leave your comments down below how you feel about this. I do know, and I've seen some interaction between high-profile content creators or right-leaning content creators as well. There was some friction about this idea of carrying a firearm. Again, I'm just trying to give you guys all the different perspectives here, that you always have the right to carry a firearm, but again, the counter pushback is true, but if you go a little too far, that obviously can set yourself up for the possibility of an engagement or an altercation. But again, Rand Paul honing in on the idea of the assault aspect of it.
Friday night, 78% of the federal government is going to run out of money, and we will have a partial government shutdown.
And that would be tomorrow. Today is Wednesday. Sorry, I'm so off, dude. It's only been 28 days into the new year, and it feels like it's been 200 days. Today is Wednesday as I make this video. This is talking about Friday, the possibility of what could happen on Friday.
Friday night, 78% of the federal government is going to run out of money, and we will have a partial government shutdown. The reason for that is Senate Democrats are refusing to vote for a House-passed DHS funding bill because it funds ICE. The problem is that DHS funding bill is tied to 5 other funding bills, so if it fails, they all fail. Still, Democrats are digging in their heels.
Until I have answers, until we start rectifying the situation, I cannot vote for funding an organization that's going to continue killing Americans.
And several House Democrats are urging their colleagues in the Senate to utilize their leverage, even if it means causing a shutdown.
And at the end of the day, this is the leverage we have. We have to stop. And if it results in a partial government shutdown, this is the lever we have. It's time to stand up.
Democrats should be prepared to use every single available measure, including shutting down our government, to ensure that we get not just reform, but a complete change.
Now, to my understanding, and we talked about this in yesterday's show, I think the only Democrat as of right now is Senator Fetterman, who doesn't want to shut down the government. But he does want Kristi Noem fired, so keep that in mind.
At the top.
I think he's the only one. Maybe you guys can fact check me on that. But as of right now, he's the only one I have found verbatim has said I don't want to shut down the government.
But Republicans point out that 80% of the money in that DHS funding bill has nothing to do with ICE.
It includes, for example, funding for FEMA. We've just gone through a horrific storm that has caused a lot of damage. And FEMA is very important. It includes funding for TSA.
And a spokesperson for Senate Majority Leader John Thune says in part, quote, "A government shutdown, even a partial one, does not serve the American people well. Hopefully, Senate Democrats who are actively engaged in conversations can find a path forward to join us before this week's funding deadline hits."
And yeah, somebody left a great comment and said ICE is already funded. And I think that's a little bit of the confusion here, is that, yeah, ICE is already funded. But again, this is more so in the context of Homeland Security and wanting reforms as far as policy changes. So keep that in mind. A lot of the focus is on ICE, but they're funded.
And Sandra, it's worth repeating one more time. Even if Senate Democrats are able to block this DHS funding bill and cause a partial government shutdown, they're not going to be hurting ICE. Remember, ICE got more than $70 billion as part of the One Big Beautiful bill through 2029. They're funded. They're good to go. A shutdown would, however, hurt all sorts of other federal agencies
within Homeland Security. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm just going to be very honest. I think this is to the detriment of Democrats who keep referring to everybody as ICE. Maybe I'm helping them out by saying this, but we have to be accurate here. For some reason, I've been covering these stories for a long time. For those of you who have been subscribed to me for a long time, you know this. Everybody just seems to get labeled as ICE, and I think in this case, it actually has hurt the Democrats by just referring to everybody as ICE instead of just honing in on ICE and using specific examples. Because the problem you run into, if you're going to refer to everybody as ICE and it's actually Border Patrol doing something else, the story for one is not accurate, but you're not helping yourself in the cause if Border Patrol actually was doing something good. So again, that is my personal opinion. I think it hurts everybody involved with trying to reform ICE, if you will, if you refer to everybody as ICE, but not everybody is ICE. I say this pretty much every single show. Even Nick Shirley got called ICE. I don't think that helps them out. This is Hakeem Jeffries' statement. Donald Trump must fire Kristi Noem immediately. Again, we heard at the top of the show, President Trump is not going to fire Kristi Noem. He has confidence in her as of right now. Or Democrats will initiate impeachment proceedings against her in the House. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. That is from Hakeem Jeffries. Taxpayer dollars are being weaponized by the Trump administration to kill America's citizens, brutalize communities, and violently target law-abiding immigrant families. The country is disgusted by what the Department of Homeland Security has done. Now, he's saying in general terms, the Department of Homeland Security has done, the entire organization. Republicans are planning to shut large parts of the government down on Friday so that the DHS killing spree unleashed in Minnesota can continue throughout America. That is immoral. Dramatic changes at the Department of Homeland Security are needed. Federal agents who have broken the law must be criminally prosecuted. The paramilitary tactics must cease and desist. Taxpayer dollars should be used to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, not kill them in cold blood. The violence unleashed on the American people by the Department of Homeland Security must end forthwith. Kristi Noem should be fired immediately, or we will commence impeachment proceedings in the House of Representatives. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. That is from Mr. Hakeem Jeffries. And here he is. Let's see what he has to say. Again, possibly moving in this direction. We'll see.
I think we're...
Your microphone is not working, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries.
We don't...
This is the live show, by the way.
Don't have sound. I think we're muted here.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Good
Thank you for having me
That was about 10 seconds into the show.
on. Kristi Noem is a despicable, corrupt, pathological liar. We've seen her slander not just one, but two American citizens, patriotic Americans who were killed without justification on the streets of Minneapolis in the last few weeks. She's deeply unqualified. She never should have been confirmed to begin with by Senate Republicans, and House Democrats have called for her to be fired immediately. And in the event that she is not terminated, we are prepared to initiate impeachment proceedings against her in the House of Representatives.
Well, the president has given no indication that he's ready to fire her or even thinking about it. And you, as I don't need to tell you, are in the minority. So how do you do that? I mean, what can you do? Have you spoken to the speaker? Do you have any sense that there are Republicans who would stand by?
This is not the first time Hakeem Jeffries has made, I guess the proper word would be a threat or an indication that something is to come. The last time he did this, do you guys remember when LaMonica MacGyver was charged? That is the congresswoman who was charged with assaulting the Homeland Security officer. I don't know if you guys remember this, but he was like, you'll see what's coming. We got something planned. We'll see what's coming. And nothing, obviously, has really happened since then. As of right now, she is going to court and will have to fight 3 different charges. And we are covering that story if you want to subscribe. So this seems to be one of those same situations of, well, okay, so what's going to happen?
You in an impeachment process?
have to build the case so that we can convince a handful of Republicans, as we have done on other issues, that the time is now to hold the Department of Homeland Security accountable for their behavior. They are conducting themselves like a paramilitary organization, as opposed to protecting the health, the safety, and the well-being of the American people. They are violently targeting American citizens and law-abiding immigrant families, and it's unacceptable, it's unconscionable, and it's un-American. We're prepared to hold hearings, as we've done in other instances, and use every...
And there are hearings coming up in March. I think it's either February or March, but the hearings have been scheduled. Kristi Noem and others will be speaking, or other leadership in Homeland Security.
Tool available to make sure that Kristi Noem is held accountable, but even more importantly, of course, we support the effort by Leader Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats to force common sense changes to the Department of Homeland Security so that these law enforcement agencies are behaving like every other law enforcement agency in the country, as opposed to like a paramilitary organization, which is what the American people have seen on the streets of Minneapolis.
And he keeps using that wording, paramilitary organization. Again, I wish we had specific examples, as far as obviously we had the shooting, but beyond that, more specific examples of other situations, not only isolated in Minnesota, because he's implying Americans, like around the United States. I just covered what's happening in Maine. We're not really seeing anything like this in Maine. If you guys haven't seen that video, I posted it yesterday. And ICE is really performing that operation with ease. They're up to 200 arrests already. That is massive in Maine. Huge. Down in Texas, it just got reported today that the daily amount of deportations that occur in the United States, 25% of that occurs in Texas. And the Trump administration often argues we don't see anything in Texas like we see in Minneapolis or Minnesota. So I do think, again, I think Democrats really need to start bringing up more specific examples and details if they're going to try to garnish some support, in my opinion.
Are there conversations going on with Republicans to make that happen? Do you see any reasonable expectation that the government is not going to shut down at the end of the week?
What has been proposed by Senate Democrats, which is something that we, of course, strongly support, is that there are bipartisan bills related to other aspects of the government that should move forward to avoid an extended shutdown in other areas. The issue before us is making sure that ICE, of course, is brought under control in ways that taxpayer dollars are not being spent to kill American citizens or brutalize everyday Americans. We know taxpayer dollars should actually be spent to make life more affordable for the American people. It's shocking to me that over a year has passed since Donald Trump was inaugurated. This guy promised to lower costs on day one. Costs haven't gone down. They've gone up. They're ripping health care away from the American people. And now mass federal agents on American streets are killing American citizens in cold blood.
Okay, so let me know how you guys feel about this. Again, I said this like 2 weeks ago. Prepare for the messaging to get very aggressive. Prepare. And so today is Wednesday. It's being reported possibly in 2 days on Friday we might get a government shutdown. We will see. That is nothing new for the American people, unfortunately.
Will not defund or change ICE in any way. They have $178 billion available for...
Senator Fetterman, I think, is the only Democrat as of right now. Again, I'm trying to be as fair as possible here. I think he's the only Democrat as of right now who's pointing out the fact of we keep talking about ICE and nothing is going to change. I think he might be the only one who points that out.
Or change ICE in any way. They have $178 billion available for their funding. And that was made possible after the big, beautiful bill, which I did not vote for. Not a single Democrat in D.C. voted for that. So they have effectively unlimited money right now. So that would be a symbolic vote. But if they do vote to shut the government down, that would make that the second time to not pay the military and a lot of other kinds of critical things just for these things. So that's what we have to look at right now about Now, what I think we all hope we could unbundle them, and then we could vote on the 5, and those would be passed quickly, almost on a UC, in fact. And then now the one thing that's standalone, that's a much different situation. But no one thinks that that's going to happen. And that's going to force our government to shut down. And I stand, and I'm very proud with our military, and to push them to not getting paid again twice in 2 months. It's a very difficult situation, but...
Yeah, again, I think politically speaking, not the best look if you're a Democrat to do that, but a lot of them are saying they're going to use every tool accessible to do that. So we will see what happens there. Now, speaking of the protester aspect of what is happening in Minnesota, protesters did swarm the Minnesota State Capitol yesterday. Again, operations are not done. There are still federal operations continuing, and I actually think they're going to go a lot harder now that Tom Homan is out there, in my personal opinion.
Now, anti-ICE protests are underway in the Minnesota State Capitol. This is St. Paul, Minnesota. This is where this is happening. This after Democrat governor there, Tim Walz, and Trump border czar Tom Homan spoke about immigration operations in the state following 2 deadly incidents in Minneapolis and the storming of a St. Paul church by left-wing agitators.
And we are still waiting to see what's going to happen with that. There are other protesters. It's being reported that the Trump administration is still pursuing some of these protesters or people inside of the church. And I think you guys are aware of that.
Harry, this is happening right now. Obviously, we're seeing these protests pop up all over the country, but this live out of St. Paul, Carrie?
Yeah, I'm looking at the anti-ICE protests, and I want to know what exactly they're anti. Is it the fact that federal law enforcement officers are enforcing federal law? Because that's completely allowable under the Constitution, under federal statute, and under Supreme Court precedent, right? Separately, are they protesting what they say is it's too aggressive, that the administration has taken the implementation too far? Now, that's a separate issue, but a lot of this has become conflated in the conversation. And one point I think is really missing from the conversation and discussion on this is the specific role of the police in protecting the ICE agents.
And I think that right there is exactly what the Trump administration is trying to nail down or try to convey to the American public. I do think the messaging is in favor of the Trump administration as of right now, as far as showing people that, hey, we have these detainers. The president has talked to the mayor, has talked to the governor. We want cooperation. The next day, which would be today, now the mayor is saying we're not going to cooperate with federal immigration. And so I do think on both sides, whether Democrat or Republican, I think it's very hard to nail down who's doing what and who's working with who. Because this is an isolated problem right now in sanctuary cities, not so much in cities that are not sanctuary. I think a lot of you know this. As far as the division of police officers working with Homeland Security in the aspect of deportations. But this situation is not that. This situation is the Trump administration knows you're never going to work with us in a million years. That's fine. What the Trump administration wants is just give us the criminals in the jail, in the prison. That's all we want. But there seems to be a lack of cooperation in that aspect as well. Again, we're only on day 2 of Tom Homan being in Minneapolis, so we're still waiting for a statement from Tom Homan to acknowledge or say, this is fully happening. I talked to them. They're not helping us.
The police can't just stand aside. We've seen historical examples of that happening. ICE agents are just as deserving as protection as the protesters. And there seems to be this idea that ICE agents, anyone can go at them and interfere or attack and the like. And actually what the police are supposed to be doing is creating a buffer between agents implementing their operations and their mission and the protesters. They don't have to assist in the implementing of federal law, and they don't have to assist in those operations, but they certainly have a duty to protect agents just like they protect.
Yeah, and a lot of people get this wrong. I've used this example before. I was in the U.S. military. When I'm off duty and I'm in civilian clothing and I'm out and about, it's not my job to also be in the U.S. military and start to patrol the area. If I'm going to Walmart, I'm on a patrol or something. And I think this is where a lot of people are getting this confused. When Homeland Security agents are off duty and they're in their hotel, it's not up to them to create a perimeter, get their gear on, and defend the hotel like we've been seeing. That is up to the local police. That is quite literally their jobs. And that's where the Trump administration is saying, we need cooperation there. Those are your people. Those are protesters on your streets. And we saw this also in Portland, where the Trump administration is saying, we want to work with you in the sense of, can you please defend the roadways?
Other people.
Apparently, it's being reported we're seeing a lot more cooperation as far as the local police helping out with the protesters, but again, we'll just wait and see what happens.
Well, they're chanting that they want criminal charges brought against the two agents who were involved in the two shootings in Minneapolis. But the one thing that I will say about this is they're protesting in the right place.
Right.
They're in the Minnesota
That's
State
right.
Capitol, right? They're
That's
not out
right.
in the streets interfering with law enforcement.
Right.
So.
All right. And Tom Homan, again, I think one of the reasons why he was sent there is because Tom Homan is a very big advocate for understanding if you don't want to work with us, that's fine. But if you don't work with us, it's going to be a lot worse for you. He is the one person I have covered throughout the entire Trump administration who reiterates that all the time. He likes to use the wording flood the zone. You've probably heard that before. Now, the mayor of St. Paul, who we rarely hear from, and that protest was in St. Paul. I'm glad the reporting was accurate on that. We never hear about St. Paul, but this is the mayor recently.
Out of Minnesotans, that in the face of despair and anger and chaos, that they have pulled together. I personally have been with community where I was the person locking and unlocking doors at a supermercado in order to make sure that ICE wasn't entering the facilities. I've delivered groceries to people who were afraid to open their door, knowing that it was the mayor of St. Paul that was delivering their groceries to them, that they were still afraid.
Sorry, it should be noted, I apologize if that was loud. It should be noted that she has been subpoenaed as well. So herself, Governor Tim Walz, Mayor of Minneapolis, and the AG, they've all been subpoenaed. Now, this is also really big news. I don't know if you guys heard about this. Again, there's like so much going on here. I'll let the clip speak for itself.
Starting in Minnesota, the top federal judge there is now demanding the acting head of ICE, Todd Lyons, to personally appear in court on Friday and is threatening possible contempt. The judge is accusing the agency of allegedly failing to grant detained immigrants proper bond hearings that he says were previously ordered by other judges in Minneapolis.
Okay, so that's happening. It reminds me a lot of the Chief Bovino situation as far as wanting to appear in front of a judge, but this seems to be a little more serious.
I want to ask you about Minnesota. Todd Lyons is now being hauled into court. He is the ICE director, and a judge there is asking him to come in. And in the 3-page order, it says the court's patience is at an end. The court acknowledges that ordering the head of a federal agency to personally appear is an extraordinary step, but the extent of ICE's violation of court orders is likewise extraordinary. I mean, all of this just seems unprecedented, but what is Todd Lyons' ability to have to show up in person? We saw them do this with Bovino, where they wanted daily reports, but it never played out.
So this is not the judge who heard the oral arguments yesterday about whether she should exercise her authority to dial back ICE's presence in Minneapolis. This is another judge who has issued 25 orders in the past 3 months to ICE saying, okay, you've arrested this person, you cannot deport him or her without a hearing.
Yeah, and as of right now, there are orders being sent that you cannot deport certain people. I don't know if you guys are seeing that as well, but I am getting notifications left and right that there is the father and the 5-year-old popping up that they cannot be deported or cannot be detained.
And all 25 of those have been ignored. So the judge is calling in the head of ICE, not Bovino, not Tom Homan, but this fellow, Tom Lyons, the bureaucrat,
Lyons, yeah.
not the on the ground, not the in the field person, the bureaucrat in D.C. to say, why aren't you complying with my orders? What could happen was, this would be unheard of, but she could put him in jail. The judge did say, quote, bring your toothbrush, which is a phrase judges use to sort of threaten people that they might not leave the courtroom under their own power.
Okay, so Todd Lyons being put in jail, I don't know if that's going to happen, but this is a real story, so just putting it out there. Let me know what you guys think about that. Yeah, that would be pretty bad stuff if that happened, right? Let's see what else I got for you guys.
All right, with us now is Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from Maryland. Senator, thank you so much for being with us. So Bovino is out, Homan is in. President Trump is talking with Governor Walz and Mayor Fry. Allegedly, there are some changes happening on the ground there. More and more Republican senators are coming forward and members of Congress saying they want an independent investigation. How satisfied are you with what's been happening?
And again, just to reiterate, this is Senator Van Hollen. He is the senator who went down to El Salvador to go see Kilmar Obrego Garcia. Just a quick reminder.
Tom, I'm not satisfied because what we need is permanent changes with respect to how ICE and the Border Patrol folks conduct themselves. And that will require reining in ICE as well as the Border Control folks. And it also means creating a system for accountability. We need accountability in this particular case, in both cases in Minnesota where we've seen killings, but we also need an ongoing commitment to make sure that there's accountability.
Again, the overlapping talking points, I hope you guys are noticing that if you're still here from the Hakeem Jeffries interview, accountability.
The problem we've seen is that these agents are essentially being told from the White House by people like Steve Miller, people like Secretary Noem, people like President Trump, that they can go out and kill Americans with impunity. And
I mean, okay, so this is a very serious accusation. I'm going to pull that back here. This is what the senator is saying. I'll let it speak for itself. Let him speak for himself. I'm a little shocked he even said that. I don't even know what to say, to be honest with you.
Essentially being told, this is in Minnesota where we've seen killings, but we also need an ongoing commitment to make sure that there's accountability. The problem we've seen is that these agents are essentially being told from the White House by people like Steve Miller, people like Secretary Noem, people like President Trump, that they can go out and kill Americans with impunity. And so we need systemic changes here before.
Now, what I do know is, again, I don't know if they've ever said that. This is a U.S. senator who's saying that. What I do know was said was, you are allowed to do your job with impunity, and as far as you don't have to be afraid to either defend yourself or to go out and do your duty within the federal role you signed up for. You have immunity in a sense.
Before we move forward with the appropriations.
How do you get permanent changes? And you say before we move forward with the appropriations, what you seem to be saying is you are a no vote on these 6 appropriation bills that are tied together this week. If they don't pass, there would be a partial government shutdown. What's your specific ask for changes to Homeland Security?
Well, John, 2 things first. Number one, Republicans should not be shutting down the government, the 6 agencies, in order to hold reform at ICE and Border Patrol hostage. In other words, we could immediately vote to separate 5 of these 6 bills and then deal and focus on the Homeland Security piece. After all, the House of Representatives passed the Homeland Security bill on its own. It wasn't lumped in with the Defense Department and everything else. So we can easily do that if Republicans were willing.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Republicans are going to separate, in my opinion. I think Republicans know they sort of obviously hold the cards here. And I think they're going to want to see who's willing to shut down the government. We just heard in the last interview, even Fetterman is very hesitant to want to shut down the government. He indicated that's the second time we're not paying the troops. And we're also hearing some hesitation from the senator here
to do that. Secondly, with respect to reforms,
but I see you guys are pointing out the senator is shifting the blame to, well, Republicans will be shutting it down. Yeah, Okay, we'll see how that talking point goes. If the government does shut down, who's going to believe who? But the indication from Fetterman is I don't think he thinks that people are going to believe it's Republicans. But we'll see.
Fall into a couple buckets. One is accountability. We talked a little bit about that. In terms of reining in ICE, I think they should have a warrant before they engage in arrests. We need to make sure, in my view, that mayors and governors of states provide consent before ICE or Border Patrol come into their cities and states in these big numbers. ICE, the number of people in ICE now, it's bigger than the armies of many countries. And then there.
So again, Senator Van Hollen advocating for basically cities or states to have a lot more control as far as how many agents come into your city. Now, there's a bit of pushback, of course, as far as this idea of demanding judicial warrants for every single person. The demand for judicial warrants is a poison pill. It would effectively provide amnesty to illegal immigrants who have not committed a federal felony. Bill Maluzhin reports, if reports are true that Dems are demanding judicial warrants for all ICE arrests as part of the DHS funding bill, and there are many other things they are wanting, that will take a massive amount of targets off the board for ICE. They would only be able to go after illegal immigrants who have committed a new federal crime after entering the U.S. illegally. State and local crimes would not apply. For instance, if an illegal... And by the way, I am curious how many Democrats actually would be okay with this. Obviously, it's very hard to nail down who would be okay with that unless we have some sort of polling, maybe. But I would be very, very curious how many, like, everyday Democrats who sort of pay attention to this, more in the moderate section, how many people would actually be okay with this, because the implications are huge if this was the case. Massive. ICE would not be able to target anyone for just being in the U.S. illegally. They would have to wait for a federal crime to be committed. Then a federal judge would have to sign off on a probable cause for arrest. So this is after the fact. It would cripple any hopes of mass deportations or widespread immigration enforcement. Warrants are not required for ICE arrest under U.S. law right now. They simply need probable cause that the target is detainable/deportable on immigration grounds and use I-200 and I-205 civil administrative warrants. The most common judicial warrants ICE uses to target aliens right now is for illegal re-entry, 8 U.S.C. 1326, a federal felony when a deported alien has re-entered the U.S. after deportation. But again, that is a limited population, as most non-citizens haven't been deported before. ICE does need a judicial warrant to enter homes. Their administrative warrants do not allow them to enter private property. That's why we often see them waiting for a target to go to or from work when they're in public. So again, I'm curious what you guys think about this. This is why I'm a little shocked they got rid of Chief Bovino, because this was a way for ICE to fill in those gaps where ICE agents don't have to wait and stalk an area. They can go focus on another area. And what Chief Bovino and Border Patrol were doing is they were coming into cities and they were filling in those gaps and patrolling streets. Again, whether or not you agree with that, I'm just letting you know those were the tactics implemented by the Trump administration. As far as lack of manpower from ICE and only using ICE for specific judicial warrants, targeted warrants, and then using Border Patrol to do the broad sweeps, fill in those gaps. So again, this is merely speculation. This is what would happen if that did get passed. And I am very curious. Obviously, a lot of conservatives are probably not going to want this, politically speaking. But I am very curious how many Democrats would actually be okay with this if they fully knew what the implications were. I guess we'll never know.
How do you do that without throwing out everything, though? Because there are clear policies here. The border numbers that Trump has achieved, that's something obviously that Americans are in favor of, even if they aren't in favor of the tactics that we're seeing in the city. How do you thread that needle and make sure you're not turning people off and you're actually listening to people
Americans
on the whole
want
picture?
borders. Yeah, Americans want border security, Brianna. You're absolutely right. And I support that. And having resources at the border and having more asylum judges, to process the outstanding cases, absolutely. We should keep doing that. But this is about what's happening inside our country. And this ICE, as it exists, is unworkable. And so
I mean, look, the counter argument is this, like what's happening inside the country, obviously, and even a lot of Democrats admit that there was a lack of border security. So now internally within the country, that is the focus. Amigo, thank you for the very generous $2 donation. Their main question is to enforce 8 USC 1325/1326. The main question is to enforce. Thank you for that.
Advice to ICE, frankly, is quit. Walk away from our country. And this ICE, as it exists, is unworkable. And so my advice to ICE, frankly, is quit. Walk away. Do it now before you shoot in the face another mom of 3. This ICE is unworkable, and it needs to be completely crushed and reshaped with a mission that goes after the most violent, unmasked, and identification out.
Okay, so let me know how you guys feel about that. This was a, no, not this clip. I guess I don't have it. I had a clip from some back and forth on CNN, but we don't have that. Governor Pritzker once again posting, Kristi Noem must resign, and if she won't, she must be held accountable and impeached by Congress. As many of you are aware, the governor has often said there is the possibility of wanting to prosecute those in the future who belong to ICE and this current Homeland Security. Whether or not it'll happen, I don't know, but that's Governor Pritzker saying that, and Governor Tim Walz has said that a couple of days ago.
State and local.
Now, I have to play this clip for you guys just because I'm not going to make a full dedicated video about this. This is Washington AG Nick Brown. I'm curious what you guys think about this.
State and local law enforcement do not have to simply watch or look away if the law is being violated. If they see somebody being assaulted unlawfully or attacked unlawfully or otherwise having their legal rights violated, we do not expect state and local officers to simply watch or do nothing. It is important that each of those jurisdictions talk to their lawyers and legal teams, understand where those lines are drawn, and after an incident, the lines of investigative authority or prosecutorial authority can be very challenging to navigate. But I think the Washington public expects their local sheriff or local police chief or officers that work for either to not simply watch if somebody in their community is having their rights violated. We hope we're not ever in that circumstance in Washington state, but I think as a general matter, that is the expectation, if not the duty, that we would anticipate our local forces having.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know about all that, but we'll see what happens with that. In fact, this was almost pushed in Los Angeles. There's a very famous clip of the Los Angeles police chief. He was asked, what can you do if ICE agents are there? Could you possibly arrest them or, get in their way? And he's like, absolutely not. Nor would I ever ask my officers to do that. So for those of you that are unaware, ICE activity is super heavy in Washington. And so again, I'm not surprised we're seeing some sort of pushback or rhetoric to even imply for the sheriff's department to possibly get involved. I personally don't think that would ever happen in a million years unless somebody went rogue. But yeah, I don't think that would happen. And I don't think they would want to do that. But that is pretty much the main focus and news I have for you guys surrounding events right now in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and St. Paul. We are going to be waiting for some sort of press conference or more statements from Tom Homan, but yeah, it looks like the president is not too happy after having good talks with the mayor and with the governor. The mayor straight up saying, we're not going to be working with you guys when it comes to federal activity, but we do want to focus on finding criminals. The Trump administration is saying, fine, you don't have to work with us, but we know you have criminals in your prison and you want to find the criminals and get rid of the criminals. Give them to us. Let's work together. Guess that's not happening as of right now. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens here. But thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you for being here. I hope I was as fair as possible for you guys. And again, for those involved with the winter storm and the bad weather, God bless you guys. Prayers to you. I know there's like literally people without power still. And make sure to please subscribe, turn on your notifications. If we do have breaking news or something ever happens, I immediately go live, and I don't want you guys to miss a thing. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for everything. God bless all of you. And we will see you all later. I got a lot of research to do and a lot more updating. Thank you guys for everything. God bless, and we'll see you all later. And please pray for peace. Hey, we actually just had a $20 donation. Sherry. Hannah Dugan convicted, not in jail, and I have Hannah Dugan tabs right here on the side. I am still waiting to see what happens with Judge Hannah Dugan. Kilmar Garcia walking free in America. I am also keeping tabs of that, don't worry. Walt still governor, Frey still mayor. I have tabs on that. Omar still in Senate. Christian Terrace walking free. Disappointed, Mr. President, America first, says Sherry. And I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of people who are upset with your exact wording or trying to figure out what's happening here. So I will be, and I am keeping you up to date with all of that. I quite literally have the tabs. I have a bunch of tabs here where I get all the notes. Every single day I check in on Judge Hannah Dugan, or former Judge Hannah Dugan. Every day I check in on the Kilmar Obrego Garcia story, and I'm just going to be honest with you, still waiting to see what happens. We'll see. We will see. But yeah, what you're saying, a lot of other people are also upset about it. That's for sure when you read comment sections and political narrative talking points. But all right. Thank you guys so much for everything. And thank you for your very generous donations. I appreciate all of you. And again, we are massive advocates for peace on my channel. Please pray for peace. And I thank you guys again for everything. God bless, and we will see you all later. Thank you guys. Love you. Thank you.